Hello everyone, Charles Watts here. Welcome back to Inside Arsenal. It is Wednesday morning. I hope you're well wherever you're watching or listening to this around the world. It is the morning after, of course, Arsenal's 1-0 win against Shakhtar Donetsk in the Champions League. I did do my player ratings and immediate match reaction video from the game last night in the press box. If you haven't seen that, it's down below in the videos or in the podcast section, depending on how you are watching or listening to this. But we'll go over that game in a lot more depth in today's show. We'll look at what Mikel Arteta's had to say. I'll go over my player ratings. Once again, we're going to talk about the deepening crisis when it comes to injuries at Arsenal, with the very worrying scenes in terms of Riccardo Calafiori, and look at what's next for him. Got lots of reaction from you guys to what was a pretty underwhelming night. Let's face it. It was a really slack performance from Arsenal. They got the job done. They made it 7 points from a possible 9 in the Champions League. So in that regard, it's been a decent start in the competition. No doubt about that. I think most would have taken 2 wins from the home games and a draw from the away game in those opening 3. But I think we're all expecting a little bit more from yesterday's performance, especially on the back of the Bournemouth defeat, kind of hoping for a bit of a response after that defeat, and it never really materialised. I thought they did okay in the first half. The first half was a bit disappointing, but it was perfectly fine. I thought they started brightly. They came out quickly. They pressed well. They put Shakhtar under pressure. But as we've seen before, they didn't take advantage of that really early burst that they had for the first sort of 10, 15 minutes. And then Shakhtar slowly got themselves into the game. And then the game started to slow down a little bit. Arsenal didn't really have that zip and that energy, that creativity to pull Shakhtar apart like they looked like they were threatening to do in those early stages. They did get the goal, of course, Gabriel Martinelli scoring, well, an own goal from the goalkeeper. Gabriel Martinelli doing everything but score when he drove into the box, cut inside, had his shot, hit the post, came back, hit the keeper and went in. Just reward, I think, for Gabriel Martinelli, who was one of Arsenal's standout performers on the game. But unfortunately, that goal's not going to be credited to him. But when that went in just before half hour, he thought, right, go on, kick on, put this game to bed, win it comfortably, give yourself a nice little confidence boost ahead of the game against Liverpool. But that never really happened. They had the chances to, no doubt about that. Had Gabriel Jesus scored just before half-time and made it 2-0, given that scoreline and more comfortable look, maybe the second half would have been different. He didn't score, went shot straight at the goalkeeper, Leandro Trossard, had that really, really weak penalty in the second half. There are other chances at the start of the second half, but as the game wore on, and as that second goal didn't arrive, you kind of knew what the last few minutes were going to be, and they were going to be nervy. And that's how it panned out. And had it not been for David Raya making a very, very good save, which is made better, actually, that save. When you look at the shot from Pedrino, it actually hits one of the Shakhtar players on the head. It glances off his head, deflects, and takes it further towards the corner. And it was a really good stop by Raya. It was kind of on the top of his wrist almost, because of the deflection, sort of moved the ball through the air. But it was a good save from Raya. You know, had that gone in, we'd have been sitting here scratching our heads thinking, what on earth has happened there? How have Arsenal drawn that game 1-1? They didn't. They got the win, which was the important thing. But again, the performance just left a little bit to be desired. Mikel said, well, I think there were 2 very different halves. First one, we were very dominant. We had created 4 big chances. We should have converted them and put the game to bed with the amounts of dominance we had. The second half was very different. We looked tired. We lacked that sharpness with and without the ball to regain it in the right moments as well, in the right areas. And we're giving certain balls away that allow certain transitions. We had 2 big chances again, missed a big penalty, and that emotion again was difficult to overcome. And we have to begin. But credit to them, they are a good side. The moment you allow them space and don't finish your actions and give them the chance to run, they are a threat. Overall, it's the Champions League. Get the win, clean sheet, and let's move on. And that's what Arsenal have to do. But they say it's not just a case of move on. They have to improve, because I think if they play as sluggishly as that, especially as how they played in the second half against Liverpool, then there's only one result that's going to happen on Sunday afternoon, and that will not be an Arsenal win. In terms of the performance, I thought Gabriel Martinelli played well. I'm going to do my play ratings in a little bit if you haven't seen them from last night. So I thought Martinelli played well. I thought Partey played well. And as I said, I thought the first half performance was okay. There were some good points in that first half performance. The second half performance was the really worrying one. I mean, they were playing on Tuesday night. They obviously played Saturday evening in Bournemouth, coming straight back from the international break. The injuries are an ongoing concern. We'll talk about Calafiori in a minute, of course. And so maybe you can look at why they tired in that second half, why they fell off. But team selection-wise, Substitutes wise in the second half again, and I said it in my video yesterday in my immediate reaction, I just don't see why Ethan Nwaneri's not playing in that game, not featuring at all in that game. You know, the substitution at half time when Ben White was taken off, thankfully, according to Arteta afterwards, that was only a substitution because he was on the yellow card and Mikel didn't want to take any risks with any more players being sent off and Arsenal having to play with 10 men for any more prolonged periods of time. So, but when that substitution happened, given the way the first half had gone, it felt like a really good opportunity to bring on Ethan Nwaneri. You know, yes, if you're going to move Thomas Partey to right back, that's fine. But then bring on Ethan Nwaneri. Do you really need to have Partey right back, Marino and Declan Rice on the pitch? I just don't think you do. It's just a little bit too safe, a little bit too, I don't know if negative's the right word, but that's what it feels like. I don't think you need all those players on the pitch at the exact same time because they all offer very similar sort of things. And especially when you're taking Partey out, who was Arsenal's standout performer in that first half in midfield, both on the ball and off the ball. When you're taking him out of those midfield positions and dropping him deeper, then it just feels like you need to replace that hole that you've left in midfield with something a little bit more attacking on that pitch. In the absence of Martin Odegaard, for example, in the absence of Bukayo Saka, and in Ethan Nwaneri, and I know we're all saying it, it just looks like he's ready to be that guy, to be able to produce the sort of stuff that Arsenal need at the moment and are lacking on the pitch at the moment. But Mikel didn't do it. He went to Mikel Marino as well, who did perfectly fine. He made some good blocks back, tracking back and all that sort of stuff defensively, but he offered very little going forward. And in that second half, you could see Arsenal just lack that spark and that urgency. And, you know, Sterling came on, offered next to nothing. Again, it just feels like Ethan Nwaneri could be offering more right now than what Arsenal have got and are currently using in midfield. But, you know we're all saying it and it is frustrating, but we'll have to see if it changes at any point soon. Gabriel Martinelli was a standout performer. In terms of the attack, I thought Martinelli was the one player who really stood out. Obviously, he didn't score the goal, but he pretty much did everything but score the goal. I thought he looked really sharp. All the good things Arsenal did in attack came down that left-hand side. Mikel said afterwards he looked really sharp, really fresher than anybody else on the pitch. You noticed that against Bournemouth. You could tell that he was different. He had another gear. He added another level of threat. Started the game really well and had a great performance today. He was obviously given man of the match by UEFA. I gave my man of the match to Thomas Partey, but it was a very close call with those two. I thought they were the two standout players on the pitch. But it's good to see Martinelli playing well and impressing. Yes, he missed a big chance against Bournemouth at the weekend. It just come onto the pitch, though. You know, I can understand why, as much as you wanted to take that chance, you can understand why it was one that wasn't taken, even though it was one that should have been taken. But he does look lively. He's carrying on that form he showed before the international break. And when Arsenal are missing so many sort of attacking talents at the moment, it's very important that the others stand up. And at the moment, Gabriel Martinelli is the one standing up. And I thought he had a very good performance yesterday. And it was good to see him get some credit afterwards. Right, we've got to talk about injuries now. I mean, it's been the theme of the season so far. I've not known a start to a season like it. I was very worried when Ben White didn't come out for the second half. Mikel allayed those fears a little bit by saying in his press conference that it was down to the fact he was on a yellow card and he didn't want another red card for his players. So fingers crossed Ben White is fine, even though I didn't think he looked 100% fit when he's on the pitch. Well, I don't think he is 100% fit. It's pretty clear that he's playing with an injury at the moment and Arsenal are having to manage it. But he should be fine for the weekend, you would think. Riccardo Calafiori, you imagine, is certainly not going to play at the weekend. I don't know that for a fact, but I would be stunned given what we saw last night and the nature or potential nature of this injury. If you're watching on YouTube, you can see a sort of screen grab at the moment that it happened. I mean, his knee went completely in the wrong direction. He slipped on the turf. It's just so unlucky at the moment as well. And I know people say you make your own luck and all that sort of stuff, but you know what Arsenal have had to go through injuries-wise so far at the start of this season, you know, is just really, really tough to take. And it's stretching the squad to its limits. You could see by that by the substitutes bench again yesterday. And yes, we can all sit here and say, well, maybe they should have signed more players in the summer. But the sheer amount of players they're missing at the moment is just pretty incredible, especially players in similar sort of positions. And Calafiori is going to have a scan. There's no doubt about that. You know, Arsenal will be assessing him today. The players have got a day off today, the players who played last night, but Calafiori won't be having a day off. He'll be coming in, you imagine. As long as the swelling is not so bad, I imagine the scan will be today. If not, they'll wait for the swelling to go down and potentially the scan could be tomorrow. But that scan is going to happen to see the extent of the damage that he has suffered. I mean, it looks like there's definitely going to be issues with the ligaments there, but until the scan is has taken place and the results have come through, we're just going to have to sit here with our fingers crossed that it was not too bad. Obviously, he tried initially to come back on, but you could see the moment the injury happened, I looked at him, he immediately, you could see he was not happy. Then he had the treatment. He told the physio, right, I'm going to try and come on. He sort of walked off, limped off. As soon as he went back on, he turned and just went like that to Mikel on the touchline. And then Mikel, when everyone was saying, get down on the floor, get down on the floor. And he went down and came off. He did walk off again, which is sometimes you take that as a good sign. But look, Jurriën Timber walked off, didn't he, when he got his injury against whoever it was on the first day of last season, Nottingham Forest, wasn't it? And then he didn't play again for the rest of the season. I'm hoping that is not what the news we're going to get with Calafiori. We're not going to hear it's an ACL tear or anything like that. But until we get these scan results, we just don't know. Hopefully, if there is any ligament damage, it's just confined to the meniscus, which is still obviously going to mean he's going to miss some football, but it's not going to be as serious as if it's an ACL injury. So there's going to be a very nervous wait at Arsenal while this scan takes place and the results come through. But it would just be a hammer blow on top of all the other injuries that Arsenal suffered. It's going to be a real hammer blow. And you do look at, who's going to play at left back now. It's something we'll talk about in shows as the week goes on, I'm sure. And we'll debate who could potentially play at left back against Liverpool. A lot will depend on if Jurriën Timber is fit. Obviously, he hasn't joined in training yet, so that's incredibly doubtful. Tomiyasu looks like that's not going to be happening as well. It would have been a very useful player to play. We know he can play against Salah on that side. He's done it before very, very well. Miles Lewis-Skelly came off the bench yesterday. There's obviously Jakub Kiwior. Alexander Zinchenko was on the bench again yesterday, so there are options, but yeah, it is not ideal timing with that Liverpool game, and the injuries are becoming a real concern for Arsenal now. So this is what Mikel said afterwards. In terms of Ben White, he just said, Ben was my decision to take him out. He had a yellow card. We'd played enough of 10 men in certain periods. They had a lot of intensity on that side and a lot of attacking players on that side. We didn't want to take any chances. With Ricky, it's something different. He felt something. I don't know the extent of that. So in that sense, it's not great news. So everyone it's just going to be sitting with their fingers crossed now, hoping and waiting for the news on the scan results on Calafiori's knee. In terms of Martin Odegaard, he gave an update in the programme yesterday on his recovery. He said he's been working very hard on my recovery in the past few weeks, and missing out on the big Champions League nights like this just makes me more determined and motivated to get back as soon as possible. I'm feeling better and better each day, but when it's an ankle injury, you have ups and downs as well. Some days you feel really good, and then sometimes you have a little reaction. But in general, it's getting better, and I feel I'm getting closer now. Mikel Arteta did speak to Norwegian media after the game last night, and he ruled Odegaard out of playing against Liverpool. I mean, I think that was a given anyway. He was never going to come back and play in that Liverpool game. But he was asked, could he feature against Liverpool? He said, I don't think so. Martin is frustrated and desperate to return, but hopefully this period will teach him some things that are important in life. Martin copes with this period very well. I don't think there are enough hours in the day for him to put in all the work he wants to do to come back. He attends all the meetings. He's involved in what happens around the team. He's our captain. He is doing everything he can to support the team during this period. He is not too far away now. He has not trained with the team yet, but he has a better feeling. So no Odegaard against Liverpool, of course, on whether Bukayo Saka can play against Liverpool. Speaking immediately after the game yesterday to Prime, he said, I don't know. He hasn't been able to train yet, so that's unlikely. So not very positive when it comes to injury updates in terms of that Liverpool game. The suggestion now, and there is still a few days to go, of course, but the suggestion now is that Bukayo Saka will not be involved in that game. But we'll have to wait and see. Like I said, we've got a few days now. The players have all got a day off today. Saka won't. He'll be in the training ground having his doing his rehab. So will Jurriën Timber. I mean, if those two could be fit, it would be such a boost ahead of that Liverpool game because it would just make the team so much stronger. I'm hoping that they've just been wrapping Saka up in cotton wool with all eyes on this game, just taking no risk with him and playing. Mikel might be playing a little bit of a game in media ahead against Liverpool. That's what my hope is as an Arsenal fan. Whether that's actually what's happening, I really don't know at this point. And we'll have to wait and see. But I would suggest in the press conference on Friday, 1:30 p.m, Mikel will be talking ahead of the Liverpool game that Mikel will be very on the fence when it comes to Saka's chances of playing against Liverpool. Okay, player ratings wise, this is what I have gone for from yesterday's game. I'm not sure if I made any tweaks to this I can't even remember what my ratings were when I spoke last night immediately after the game, but I had a little bit of time to think about them more. So I gave Raya a 7. He didn't have anything to do. He made that one big until that last minute, but it was a really key save. It protected 2 points for Arsenal. It could have, if it had that gone in, it's going to be 1-1 draw. It was a save you would expect him to make, but he had to be alert enough to save it on a night where he basically stood around doing very, very little. So I gave him a 7. Ben White, I gave a 5. Obviously went off at half time. Saliba and Gabriel, fairly comfortable night work for both of them. Gabriel made a couple of blocks, one really important one in the second half when Trossard did one of his random back passes straight to a Shakhtar player and almost put Arsenal in real trouble. So I gave him a 7. Calafiori, I gave a 6. Partey was my man of the match. I thought Partey was really, really good. He was a dominant player in the first half, no doubt about it. With the ball, without the ball, he dominated that midfield. When he went to right back in the second half, it limited him in terms of his influence on the game, of course. But I still gave him my man of the match for that first half performance. I thought he was very, very good. So I gave him an 8. Rice was a 7. Gave Jesus a 6. I didn't think Jesus played badly last night. I actually thought he played pretty well, especially in the first half when Arsenal were, okay. In the second half, he faded. The whole team faded. There was, you could just see that. But in the first half, he was playing right in front of me, Jesus, and I liked what I saw from him a lot of the time. He was getting on the ball. There was a couple of times maybe he could have been a little bit more forward thinking when Ben White was getting on an overlap and Jesus chose to ignore him and played a sideways pass or a backwards pass. But on the whole, I thought he had a decent half, and I really wish he'd scored that goal just before half time because I think it would have given him a major lift. And I looked at him after he'd missed that chance. There was about 2 minutes left of injury time, and you could see kind of the weight of that miss was on his shoulders. He was looking up at the sky. You could tell he was just like, I can't believe I didn't score that. And it was really, really affecting him. I thought that was a shame because on the whole, I thought it was actually quite a decent, okay performance from him on the right-hand side. And I would suggest against Liverpool, if Saka's not going to be fit, I'd probably play him on the right again at the weekend. So I gave him a 6. I gave Martinelli an 8. I thought he was, Arsenal's best attacker, no doubt about that. All the threat really came from him. Gave Havertz a 6 and Trossard a 5. It's a weak penalty from Trossard. I don't understand. Mikel spoke about it. I was asked about it afterwards why Havertz didn't take that penalty and why Trossard took it. I don't really get myself why that would even have been a decision. For me, it just had to be Havertz. He's a really good penalty taker. His record's fantastic. He takes them for Germany. He was on for a record. If he scored a goal yesterday, he would have scored in 8 successive home games for Arsenal. No one's done that since Thierry Henry in the year 2000. Mikel was asked about Trossard. He said, yes, they made that decision. The penalty taker is normally Bukayo or Martin. And after that, we have 2 or 3 players who can take it. They made the decision. Unfortunately, Leo missed it. But as you said, it's an opportunity missed. And it was just a weak penalty from him straight down the middle. And yeah, I thought in the first half he buzzed around okay. Trossard, he was leading the press, almost caught the goalkeeper out a couple of times when he had the ball at his feet. Had a couple of chances that he didn't take, but yeah, really odd back pass in that second half that almost played Arsenal into trouble, like I said, and that penalty was just poor in a chance when you got to finish the game off, kill the game off, and I thought it was a really poor one. And Havertz, I gave a 6, worked hard, but just didn't really get an opportunity in front of goal. Kai Havertz, substitutes came on, obviously Marino, Sterling, Jorginho and Lewis Skelly. Marino was on for the second half, as I said earlier, did some okay things defensively, didn't offer anything going forward. Sterling was just non-existent, and Jorginho and Lewis Skelly came on pretty late on. So those are my player ratings. Okay, we'll go through what some of you guys have been saying since the full-time whistle yesterday. Ed says Trossard was a solid 4, worst player on the pitch. He keeps making these weird back passes. He should never have taken the penalty. He's only starting because there's no one else. He needs to sort it out. Mikel should not play Rice and Marino in midfield again. None of them can hold the ball like Partey. McCormick says that was another really dull game caused by our poor game plan. I'm also disappointed with Arteta's team selection and substitutions. Mr. Kleiman says Arteta needs to stop playing Rice and Marino as a midfield pair. They are too rigid and not enough agility, creativity. Having players all over 6 foot is great defensively and with set pieces, but it limits your attacking threat. Arteta has become so obsessed with defending, and I hope this won't be his downfall. Adventure Wannabe says, dreadful football we've been playing all season. Arteta has gone too far down the road of physicality at the expense of creative players. Late Wenger era, we were too far down the creativity spectrum, and now it's the opposite. Both result in unbalanced team. We are now dreadful on the ball, zero fluidity, quick short passing through the thirds. No wonder Arteta fields a majority of players who have size and power, but little agility and technical creativity. Also, Arteta's instructions are extremely cautious which adds to the issue. And a lot of people were feeling like this, and I came out of the stadium feeling like this. But I have to be said, there is a sort of recency type analysis, I think, going on here, and I'm guilty of it as well. I think everyone is, but Arsenal haven't been dreadful this season. They've played some really good stuff at times this season. Last Champions League game at home to PSG was one of the best European performances I've seen from an Arsenal side in a long, long time against a real high quality opposition. They played some excellent football in that game, really good football. They played some really good football at times. We do have to remember the players that they are missing. This could be a completely different Arsenal team right now if you had Bukayo Saka, Martin Odegaard, Jurriën Timber in that team. It would be. It just absolutely would be. And I suppose you can look at it the other way and say, well, why are you so reliant on a couple of players for creativity and attacking threat? Surely there should be more quality without those players to be able to do so. And that is definitely an argument. But I do think at times, as frustrated as we were coming out of that game yesterday, you wind the clock back just a few weeks and no one was really feeding anywhere near as negative as this. So I think you do need to take stock a little bit and reflect on the season as a whole, which, at the moment, Arsenal take the Bournemouth result out of it, and it had been going pretty well up to that point. Lewis says, Jesus is reminding me of the Pepe situation. Can have some good moments, but doesn't do enough to get above a 6 out of 10 performance. Yeah, kind of agreeing with that at the moment. Anthony says, Charles Arteta says the reason he subbed White was because he was on a yellow card and he didn't want to risk him because we played with 10 men many times this season. What does that mean about our discipline and managers' trust? Am I reading too much into this? Shouldn't that be something addressed outside the pitch instead of resorting to subbing players because we surely our players will get yellows and be targeted in the future, and they should know how to handle such pressure and silly mistakes. Yeah, I suppose I get your point on it, but I did think it was probably a fairly wise decision because all of their attacks basically were going down that side. The referee had a couple of words with Ben White. He'd already booked him. Any sort of mistake in that second half, and suddenly you're down to 10 men again playing. And that's not just and then the sort of negative of that is not just you're playing with 10 men, but it just means everyone else is having to do even more work and put even more minutes in their legs and more miles in their legs to cope with playing without a man. And so I can understand why he's done it, to be honest. And I don't think it's something that should be overly concerning us. Ollie says, you've got to laugh. What could have been in previous seasons if we consistently had a fit party, only to now have a consistently fit party this season, but no squad to play with. We haven't at all got going this season, but it's a must. We grind out results during this period and we hope to peak at the perfect time between March and May. And I think that's an important thing to remember as well, because you go back to at the end of last year, the West Ham games, the Fulham game, the mood after the Fulham game, which was Arsenal's worst performance of the season last season by a mile, that Fulham game. They were dreadful in all areas of the pitch. And you just thought, that's it. Season's done. They look absolutely out of it. They're not playing good football. They're not taking any chances. They're not scoring any goals. And you thought they're never going to score a goal again. And then suddenly they went on that remarkable run for the whole of the second half of last season, scoring so many goals, playing some great football, winning game after game after game. Things can turn like that. They absolutely can turn like that. So as much as we're all a little bit deflated right now with not so much the results, but the football, it can turn very, very quickly. And this Arsenal team have shown that they're more than capable of playing excellent football and scoring plenty of goals. So we've just got to hope that starts sooner rather than later. One more page of reactions now. Aaron says, Charles, I can't imagine us going into the Liverpool game and winning without Saka and Calafiori. Really big worries. Our attackers looked awful since the absence of both. And the only bright side is Martinelli is always strong against TAA. Also, does the substitution of MLS mean that he might start against Liverpool on Sunday ahead of Kivior and Zinchenko? I'll talk about that later on in the week. I think we'll start focusing on that Liverpool game and who could potentially play. We'll have to wait and see what the news is on Calafiori. But yeah, it was interesting that Lewis Skelly came on ahead of the more experienced players. Holly says, I was at the Emirates today, and whilst the second half was not great, I thought we were not bad in the first. Taking Partey out of midfield didn't really work. We need to be more clinical. Yep, agree with that. John Priest, John Priest, is that you, Johnny? I've just noticed that. I read your comment earlier, and then I've just noticed the name there. If it is, cheers for joining us. It says, at this point, it honestly feels as if Arteta is leaving Nwaneri out purely out of stubbornness because everyone is calling for him to play. He's done this type of thing before. Persevering with Partey at right back, start of last season springs to mind. Seems like he's constantly trying to prove people wrong and show that he knows best. We used to say that about Arsene Wenger a lot, didn't we? Why introduce a 15-year-old to Premier League football and then if in 2 years when he's ready and made immense progress, he's gone from strength to strength, you're just going to have to sit him on the bench every week, even when our two most creative players are out injured. It makes no sense to me whatsoever. I'm not saying Ethan is on the same level, but look at what Yamal was doing over in Spain. Look at what Cesc did when he came into the team at a similar age. Sometimes I really don't understand what goes on in Arteta's head. I think a lot of people are agreeing with your sentiments there, John, at the moment. And I have to agree. I don't really see the point in why he's not been featuring. It baffles me as much as it baffles all of you. But it's football, isn't it? Unfortunately, we're not the managers, and the manager is a guy who's making a decision and at the moment, he is deciding that for whatever reason that he wants to go down a different route and not give Nwaneri the minutes we're all hoping for, which is a shame. It is a shame because I do feel in his period of games, especially while Odegaard's been out, it's been a really good opportunity for him to get minutes and show what he can do. And he's just not had enough of them. Obviously, he'll play next week against Preston in the Cup, so we'll see him from the start again in that game. But you can't sort of look at how he's being used at the moment and think there's any chance of him really playing against Liverpool. So, yeah, it is disappointing. I agree with you. Just before we go, now sort of news aside from yesterday's game, it has now been confirmed that Jack Wilshere has joined Norwich. Has left Arsenal as under-18s coach and has joined the first-team coaching staff at Norwich. Great move for him, of course, progressing in his coaching career. Disappointing for Arsenal, really popular behind the scenes. Obviously, a club hero to the fans as well. The players really liked him as well. So it is a blow, no doubt about that. The process has now started for Arsenal to appoint a successor to Jack, who will lead the under-18s team. That will happen pretty soon, I would imagine. Jack says, as everyone knows, Arsenal is and always will be a part of who I am, and the club means so much to me. However, this opportunity has come at the right time to progress my coaching career within a first-team environment. And look, it is a great move for Jack. You know, progression is key in coaching, and hopefully he can do that. And I don't think this is the end of Wilshere's Arsenal story. I'm sure there are a couple of chapters still to go in that, but it might be a few years yet until we see him return one way or the other to the Emirates. But I hope he smashes it. I'm sure you all hope he smashes it as well and really starts to kick on in his coaching career. Still only 32, Jack Wilshere. How mad is that? Honestly, I can't believe he's still only 32. Just seems like he's been around for absolutely ever. Right, that's it from me, everyone. Sorry, this has been a bit of a long one today, much longer than usual, but plenty to discuss, of course, and dissect from yesterday's game. I'll be back tomorrow to do it all over again. You want to get anything included in that show tomorrow, get down into the comments with your opinion, with questions, with your thoughts, and I'll pull some of them together and always and get them included in the show. So for now, have a good rest of the day. Enjoy some of the football later, and I'll speak to you tomorrow. Bye-bye.